All right, people are jumping on. So last night, I don't know, there's probably quite a few of you on there, and we were mid-discussion, and we got a call from Greg saying we had some puppies out on the road, and so we had to quickly go do that, and so we got them all in.
Yep.
We were good.
A call from Greg at
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock on a Sunday night is never a good thing.
No.
So anyway, it's just part of it. I guess the goal of this, I'm just checking the framing.
Looks good.
Good. All right. The goal of this. You want to go grab some water? The goal of this session is to sort of tie a bow on the stuff that we talked about last week. We were almost wrapping up our sort of spiel at the beginning about internships and things to think about as a prospective intern, as well as an employer or somebody who's trying to create an internship program on your farm. Sort of things to think about from both angles, and we were almost complete and about to start into the Q&A, and then had to go wrestle puppies in the dark. So I guess what I want to do for this session is sort of quick recap of what we covered last night, and then we will transition. So a quick recap, sort of wrap up our discussion, and then transition into a Q&A. And so this Ask Us Anything question answer type forum deal is going to make up a larger chunk of this than it normally does, and we'll go for as long as it's interesting and as long as people want to tune in. I know it's Monday night and people might be busy.
We need to be careful about saying that, because
what
if we say that, we're gonna have to just keep going.
Yeah,
one of these times it's gonna be like it's 10:30.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I should say as long as it's interesting, or
we need to go to bed.
When we need to go to bed, and whichever comes first. So
we're castrating steers tomorrow, so we get a big day.
Castrating bulls.
Castrating bulls, my
yeah.
bad.
It would be
making steers.
Steers. It'd be crazy. It'd be a little hard to castrate a steer.
That'd be easy.
Yeah. Oh, it's done.
This is done.
Okay. How are we looking on the attendance? Oh, we're good.
Yeah, we got some people.
Okay. So I guess recap really quickly from the intern perspective. Things to think about if you're looking to get into an internship or looking for a mentor, so to speak. The passion of the mentor. Mm-hmm. That was one that we talked about. Can you feel that energy from them and the passion that they have in teaching as well as what they're doing? That's big.
Is what they're doing something that you want to align yourself with, or that you want to be doing in the future?
Yep.
That's another one. The
closer you can align their internship program with what you want to be doing, the more applicable and useful it's going to be. Mm-hmm. What was another one? Sort of understanding the environment you're going to be in a lot of aspects, like as far as the program itself, how many other interns are there going to be, what's the sort of direct to like mentor connection you're going to have, is it going to be removed because of a lot of employees and managers or whatever that you're going to really be learning from, and you're not going to have that guy or girl as direct communication. That's something to think about. And then as well as like the environment you're going to be in, like what are your daily tasks going to be like? Is it going to be hot as heck? Is it going to be cold? Are you going to be used to that environment? Bugs, ticks, mm-hmm. Mosquitoes, like all those sort of like the daily grind. You need to be aware of that going into it. And I guess the last piece was, if you go through an application process for one of these things and you get to a point where you're having some serious doubts before you even start, you should always pull the plug. Like, don't, listen to yourself, And
doubts are different than, anxiety or, kind of scared to doing it. Because, you got to kind of face your fears at some point.
Yeah, I mean, everything, it's new for everybody.
Right. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking to be, putting yourself out there and experimenting and stuff. But if you're like, this is not something I want to do, but you already feel like you're really committed and you want to do it, there's still plenty of time to pull the plug. And it'll be better in the long run.
Way better, because I can guarantee you that whatever you see on your visit or your from that you hear from the people that are there or whatever, it will not prepare you for those days. And if people out there who are in the industry know what I'm talking about, those days when just it seems like you turn around and every corner you come around, there's something on fire, so to speak. And it just never ends. It's like when it rains, it pours, if we want to speak in excessive metaphors. But yeah. Anyway, so I think that was sort of a recap of things to think about as a prospective intern. And then we're wrapping up the discussion about
like potential intern teacher or
employer.
Would you be an employer?
Intern administrators, like mentors.
Mentor, I would
say. Like if you want to establish an internship program on your farm or your ranch, things to think about.
The biggest misconception is that interns are free labor. I'm gonna get some interns around here, fix this place up, it'll be cheap, just gotta house them or whatever. And let me just tell you, that's a lie.
Yeah, 100%.
Granted, yes, you're not paying, depending on the situation, but you're not paying as an intern usually as much as you would an employee. So in that respect, maybe yes, you're not, you don't have that expense, but the amount of emotional and like just the amount of teaching you have to pour into those people in order to get them to where to where they can operate successfully on their own. There's a huge amount of like a learning curve that intern has to take in. And if you're in a spot in your farm where, let's say you're kind of starting out, you kind of got your feet under you just a little bit, but you're still not really sure what you're doing, and you're like, oh, if I get some interns in here, they'll help me out, and we'll get this thing going. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
they are gonna know less than you do about the farm, and so they're relying on you to teach them, and you can't expect them to know how to make things better. They can, and a lot of times they do, but you can't rely on that. And so
would you say a good way to think about it is like, if you're in a position where you feel like you're gonna incorporate another enterprise onto your farm, right? So like, if you do sheep and you want to incorporate cattle, or you do cattle and you want to incorporate pigs, or whatever, when you get to that point and you're like,
you've got
I feel
one enterprise.
Yeah, I've got it down. I feel like I've got a handle on it. That's how you should feel about your farm in general, because it's really another enterprise that you're entering into with an internship program.
And you got to make sure that your farm as itself is running smoothly. Like you got to get it built up enough that it can kind of go on its own, and you obviously still have to work on it, but it's not like you're in that building stage. You've got it built and it's just starting to produce, and that's when you want to maybe look at interns, not starting from the ground up, because they just bring a whole nother element of stress and work into your life, that if you're trying to grow your farm, you don't need extra weight on your shoulders.
And that leads into sort of the next thing that we talked about last night, which was that not everybody should or is passionate about teaching. For some people it's very difficult, or it just doesn't come naturally, or it's a really big effort, monumental effort, or pain in the butt to do. If you're one of those people, I would highly consider not doing an internship program, because that's what it is. Like you were saying, the number one thing that you need to be concerned about is educating and pouring education into those usually younger people that are coming onto the farm. So that's definitely something to think about for sure. And then I guess that was around the point that we got interrupted last night. But I think maybe some other things to think about if you're going to implement one is just basic stuff, like where are they going to stay? How
are they going to be paid?
How are they going to be paid or compensated? Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's like in this situation, right? Our pay or compensation is like first and foremost experience and knowledge that we gain from Greg and Jan.
That's huge.
Which is the number one thing. That's massive, and that should be a priority for any intern. But then the other compensation pieces are, like, we do get paid a stipend every month, and it's pretty modest. It's just enough to stipend.
No, never I see stipend.
Stipend. We do get paid a small amount, like every month, and it's enough to sort of cover our grocery bill and a little bit extra. And then as well, like our groceries are supplemented with a chest freezer full of meat, as many gallons of milk, and as many dozens of eggs as we need in a week.
And it's raw milk.
And it's raw milk, which is a huge bonus. But but anyway, so like those are that's like a huge piece of, dairy, eggs, and meat are some of the most expensive pieces of your when you go to the grocery store, that's what's going to cost the most money. And so that being taken out of the equation helps, as well as the fact that we live in a fully stocked and supplied trailer, and they pay the utilities, and so
they take care of us.
Yeah, so like they may not be paying us a lot, but like if you start to layer on all of those like compensations, if you want to call it, it's a pretty. I think it's a pretty good deal. You know what I mean?
Goodness. Yeah, and, for sure. I'd honestly do it just for for nothing.
But
just for the experience.
But those are the things that you need to think about if you need to make it comfortable and like a good experience for that intern. I mean, you don't need to roll out the red carpet and like be ludicrously, I don't know what the term would be, like pulling out all the stops, so to speak, for your interns and getting them all sorts of expensive stuff or paying them a ton or whatever. Like that's really not the point.
But you just gotta realize that they're humans too, and so like the some of the comforts that you enjoy, they also enjoy. And so if you can help kind of provide those, it just makes their experience a lot better.
Yep.
And they're more willing to work for you because they see that you're supporting them, so they're going to support you, and it builds a good relationship.
Exactly. And Greg's also really good about like if we go and be above and beyond the call of duty, or we do where we're like really hitting our stride and doing things really well over a period of time or whatever, he'll give us a tip or a bonus here and there, and that is like really appreciated on our end. Mm-hmm. And so like if you're in that mentor position and you've got interns and they're doing really well for you, you can tell they're busting their butt, and maybe they did something, maybe the cows got out and they were out way later than they normally are, and they got everything back in and they had a good attitude and XYZ, right? If that kind of stuff happens, like giving them, an extra whatever, $100 or whatever for doing something like that it means a lot.
Maybe it's taking them out to eat or something.
Exactly.
In a fancy restaurant. Maybe it's it's other. It doesn't have to be necessarily just money,
but
just rewarding.
Good hard work.
Yeah, it goes a long ways.
And then it just motivates and instills
respect and like.
If I take care of you, you're going to take care of me type deal.
Yep.
And that can come in a variety of forms. But you really want to cultivate that, like, sort of like we're all in this together culture on your farm or on your ranch, because those interns might become super, super valuable assets in 4 months, 6 months, however long it takes for them to come up to speed.
Another thing, too, is you can't just leave them with the worst tasks. Like you gotta lead by example, and I mean it doesn't mean that you have to do everything that they do, but just showing that maybe go out and split wood with them sometime, or cut wood, or do some kind of task that shows that you're not just hiring them out just for cheap labor. You're actually trying to teach them, and you're expecting that they work for you in advance. Like it strengthens that relationship. With intern and mentor.
Yeah.
So
it's like, don't make them do stuff that you wouldn't be doing yourself.
Yeah.
So if you
really, I mean, that's a good rule to live by in life too. Is like,
even if you have employees or whatever.
Anything. Don't ever, no job's too low. If you expect someone else to do the job, you ought to expect
you ought to be doing it yourself.
So.
So I think that covers sort of the big things. I'm sure there's some other stuff in there as well.
For those that are interested in either interning somewhere or starting an internship program, maybe either of those ends, a book that I'd really recommend is Joel's book, Fields of Farmers. I read that before I came here, and it's just, there's a lot of like what we just talked about, a lot of information that like if you haven't experienced it before, you don't really realize it. But then if you read this book going into it, you like recognize a lot more, elements to it, and then it'll be almost more enjoyable because you're like, oh, if I do this, it's it's gonna help him, and he's doing this, and that's that's helping me, and it just really ties in that relationship between mentor and intern. So yeah, I would recommend reading that book.
Yeah,
a lot of good stuff in there, and it's not just he talks about internship programs and stuff, but there's a lot more in that book too. But the internship part of that book is really, really good. So
and then I guess I was gonna say, like, from another sort of administrative perspective, you should also think about like how long you want those interns on your farm. Yeah. Because there's advantages and disadvantages to short versus long internships, and it really depends on the individual and what they're looking to do as to what kind of program is going to be interesting to them. But from an administrative perspective, you got to think about things like the shorter the program is, the more programs you're going to be able to have. Therefore, the more people you're going to be able to teach and cycle through on your farm, which may be a good thing. You get a lot of new faces, a lot of new perspectives. You get a lot of opportunities to like hone your craft of like, bringing people up and teaching them and whatever, and that's great. But there's some serious drawbacks to short internship programs, and I would say a short program to me would be like a growing season. That would be short.
Or 4 months.
Like 4 months, 6 months, something like that. Anything shy of a year, I would say, would qualify as a short internship program. And
the reason being is it takes about 4 to 6 months. Depending on the individual, obviously.
Yep.
But it takes about that long. And it was the same way with us before Ben and I, or the intern, feels comfortable that they kind of know what's going on. They've been through the routine, the worst of it. Yeah. They know what to expect. And then, like, we noticed it last year. Is like the first 6 months felt really long. Then the last 6 months that we just had flew by. And it's just like we get into a routine now, and so it's like it just becomes more fluid. So if you're every 6 months you're cranking interns out, that's great. But then they're never going to get to a point. I should say never. It's less likely for them to get to a point.
A lower percentage of them.
Yeah. We'll get to a point where they can start operating smoothly on the place, and so I think that's a huge advantage of the intern. For the mentor is like once you teach them, then they can help you run it for however long while learning. So.
Yeah. But again, like some people are just not going to be willing to or don't want to commit that large a portion of their time. So like you will capture candidates that you otherwise wouldn't, right? That aren't as committed to like a year long program. From the other point of view, year-long programs have the advantage, like you were saying, is you get that sort of break-in phase, and then you get an equal amount of time almost, if not more, where they're at that operation phase where they become a huge asset to your farm. From the intern's perspective, you just get so many more reps being there for a year. You get to see a full, all 4 seasons, 2 seasons, however many seasons you got. They get to see every season. They get to see just more stuff, more reps, more experience. And so when they leave...
things can go wrong, because when things go wrong, that's when you learn the best.
Yeah, no, it's 100% true.
I'm not lying when I say that.
If everything went right, it'd be pretty easy and not a very valuable experience, which is, in the moment, doesn't feel like it, but looking back on it, it's like I'm glad that happened, because now I'm prepared for my own chaos when it happens on my place or a place that I'm managing. I know how to pull a calf, or I know how to get a sheep back in when it's running around like a maniac, or insert disaster. Drought.
I know how to butcher a cow when she kills herself
in the corral. All kinds of stuff like that. Like in the moment, those things suck, but in as far as a learning perspective, it's hugely valuable. And if you're only there for 4 to 6 months, there's only so many things that can go wrong, and so you're only going to have so many of those opportunities to learn. So that's a big thing, but obviously, like, there's people that aren't going to be willing to commit to a year, and it's a big commitment on your part as well to be able to host somebody for a year or whatever. And then the downside also is, like, if you've got a complete dud of an intern, like, you sort of have committed to them for a year, unless they do something flagrant, and then you could fire
obviously
them.
It's always your operation, and you have the final say as to if like someone is just absolutely not working out, and it's a danger to others, or it's a danger to himself or herself, you can let that person go, but that's not ideal. You'd rather not that.
But like, even if it's somebody who's just like they're going through the motions and meeting minimum requirements, but you can tell it's really sort of like pulling teeth to get them to do what you would like them to do. Like, it's hard because you can't really get rid of them without, giving yourself a bad name and without a reason, but at the same time, they're not really putting forth the effort. So if you get somebody like that, if you're there for a year, you just got to suck it up, and you got, like, whatever, an extra 6 months of time that you otherwise could have gotten rid of them at. But I mean, those are conversations that you need to have with the person and sort of decide for yourself, like, what the call is there. But it's a commitment from both perspectives, from the intern's perspective and from your perspective. You're committing to each other for an entire year, which is not an insignificant period of time. I would be of the opinion that, like, 2-year internships are awesome. Like, I mean, I'll check back with you at the end of this, but, like, even after a year
flew by.
A year flew by, and then it's like, man, it'd be great to just get some more reps, and we get to do that. So
we're both pumped about it.
Anyway, I think that's probably a good sesh.
Good synopsis.
I think it's a good synopsis. Tied up some loose ends with the conversation last week. We'll jump into some questions, and if people have any more questions about intern stuff, throw it in the deal. The one thing I will say before we jump into questions is, if you or somebody who's interested in interning here, I'll give you just a quick rundown on how you do it. You need to email Greg or Jan and request an application. They will then send you the application, and you need to fill that out by August 31st.
At
midnight. That's the deadline and then that would be for the following growing season, because the internship starts in April. So you submit your application in August, at the end of August.
Before
August 31st. You can submit it early, but before August 31st. And then if you get accepted, you would start the following April. Mm-hmm. And so once you do that, we read all the applications.
Ben and I both.
And Connor will read them too. And then we sit down and have a discussion about who's on the short list. We'll bring out 3 to 5 people to the farm for...
Yeah, by short list, he means the top 5 or
3 depending on what the candidate pool is like. We'll bring them out to the farm for a weekend, basically, 3-4 days of work. And that's for us to learn about them and get to meet them and see how they operate. And it's for them to see how we operate and get to know the operation here. Then after all those shortlist people have done their visit, we sit down and have another discussion and decide who we really liked, and then we'll go from there. And there's no 1 to 2 interns is pretty typical, but it just depends on the candidate pool and what the situation is and so forth. But that's the deal. Email Greg and Jan, get that application in by August 31st at midnight, and
if you guys are serious about it, I mean, do it.
Yeah,
I would highly recommend it.
I mean, obviously, we've gotten from what I know from Jan, we've gotten a decent amount of applications, but there's still there's still a lot of availability. It's not like we're inundated and you don't have any chance.
Oh yeah.
So
there's no limit on it either. I mean, if you're interested, send an application in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like
we're going to read every
single one. Everybody's going to get a fair chance. It's not like first come, first serve or anything. So,
and the one last thing I'll say is my biggest piece of advice for the application is to be yourself.
Yep.
Don't try to answer the questions in a way that you think we would like you to answer them, because it's very easy for us to tell reading the applications who is into it and who is not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for me, it's my number one criteria reading them is if I can feel through the application that they're jazzed up about this and they love the opportunity to come out, I'll pass them through. and you obviously have a discussion with everybody else. But that was one of the biggest determining factors I saw in the applicant pool last year was
it's the passion.
And maybe, and if you're not that good at conveying a written application, then you need to work on it, because I get that some people it's not the best medium for them, but it's just something that in life you're gonna have to improve that skill.
And it's not that necessarily we're looking at like writing skills or
not at all.
It's like if you are like into this, you're gonna show through how you're talking or how you're writing that you not necessarily that you know, but like that you are invested in and show a serious interest.
Like
in it. And it's easy to weed. I mean, just from reading last fall, it's like you can easily pick out those that
didn't take the time.
Definitely are interested and definitely just did it because they thought it was a cool opportunity. Which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
It's just.
And the other thing too is like I also remember some applications where they weren't themselves enough. Like it's like you could tell reading the application that they were trying to answer the questions as best they could, as in like trying to like give the response that we thought they should be giving, as opposed to just speaking from their own human self and saying like, this is me, this is what I'm into, you know what I mean? Like this is why I'm passionate about it, this is why I think it's going to be useful for me in the future. Like just being, you could tell those that were honest and passionate versus those that were trying to put up a front a little bit versus those that just didn't take the time. So just be yourself. If you got the passion, it's gonna come through in the application, and I think that's about it as far as that's concerned. All right, let's jump into some questions.
All right, we got a bunch of them. And if you had a question last night, sorry we couldn't get to it. Just if you remember it, put it on here and we'll try to
just watch the
try to get to it. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the footage from last night is non-existent because I just closed the app. I didn't save anything, so that episode is no longer in existence. There's no record of it. It won't show up on YouTube. It won't show up on Instagram. For those who are here live, you saw it live, and that's the only time it existed. So,
all right. In the spirit of Jack's Link beef jerky, messing with Sasquatch commercials. Do you guys have any messing with Greg stories?
As in like doing something that pissed Greg off, like accidentally. I don't know.
When cows don't take their calves or are stupid,
he
like
hates
with their
it.
calves, Greg gets so pissed. And I mean,
well,
it's not comical, but it's
kind of comical. But like that's not something we do. That's something that like just happens. I don't know. I mean, like it's pretty hard. He's very understanding. Like I can't think of a time. Oh,
he's been mad.
So I can think of one time, and it was very brief. It was this winter. We had ice on one of the tanks. It was one of those Pride of the Farm blue plastic tanks. And what we'd been doing to get because there's an ice wall that was freezing on the side of the tank, and what we've been doing for the week prior was taking the butt of the axe and just like tapping around the side of the tank to break off the ice ring. So I was just doing the same thing, just tapping around the side of the tank to break off the ice ring, and the axe handle went through the tank, and the tank just starts draining.
It's a 400-gallon.
It's a 400-gallon tank with a float, and so if the tank drains below the level of the float, it'll just keep flowing, and it was a pond, so it would just empty the pond. Yeah. And like it was so anyway.
It was like -20
out. Ran to the shutoff. Greg was there. He got pissed in the moment. Well, not pissed at me, just pissed at the situation. Yeah. We ran to the shutoff valve and shut it off.
We were all kind of pissed though.
Yeah. I mean, it was because it's like, what do you do? Yeah. And then we tied the float as tight as we possibly could, which was an incredibly cold endeavor.
Oh my goodness.
Like as tight as we possibly could to the lever arm, and
we had to take turns dipping
our hands into water to tie it because it was so cold. But anyway, we finally got it tied, and if I had busted that tank literally a quarter of an inch lower, we would have been screwed because we would have just had to use a different tank. But because it was where it was, it just was able to stop the level before it got to the hole.
Right at the edge.
It is right at the edge of the hole.
It drips just a little
bit over it. So we're still able to use the tank, and we got a new one, but we just haven't installed it yet. But that was a moment where it was like, oh damn, like that, like it was a huge screw up, and and could have been a complete disaster. But he was pissed in the moment, and then like effusively apologized afterwards for being pissed. And it's like, I don't blame him at all. I'd be pissed too. I was pissed, but
yeah, we're all like, yeah, not like just like mad that it happened. Not really like,
because we had all done it for the week prior. We were doing the exact same thing. And plus, the tank was 20 years old. So, and the funniest thing was Greg had been boasting for the past week about how like, man, these tanks are incredible. They just keep going. These things are 20 years old. Never had a problem with them. Bam, hole punched in the tank.
I think it was that day in the video. He said that.
Yeah, or something like that.
I don't know.
But anyway, that was kind of funny. Funny Greg story.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Greg's videos have given me a good idea of optimal cattle body condition and genetics. Can you talk about sheep a bit?
With sheep, we don't pay as close attention as far as like the sheep are a second priority, right? So we're not calling as aggressively and as stringent with body condition and making sure that the animals that we keep are the ones that are performing to the absolute maximum. Like, we don't pay that close attention to the sheep. It's really similar from our perspective. Like, we just look for ones that are nice and filled out,
have a good hair
coat, they're
fine
bone, not too much leg.
Yeah. Good teats.
Then with not like a dirty tail. That's a big thing with sheep. You want to make sure, they shed off properly in the summertime. They're not like hanging onto hair. Mm-hmm. It's pretty basic stuff. It's essentially the same stuff. It's just on a smaller animal.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, there's people that get way more into sheep genetics and selecting proper, tagging sheep and understanding which lambs came from which ewes and like following genetics that way. We don't do any of that. It's just, we call the sheep. Someone asked me this week because we talked about cull animals last week and all we talked about was cattle. We didn't talk about culling sheep, but culling sheep is the exact same deal with the cattle in that they go to the sale barn. But with sheep, we just do it basically once a year. In July, at some point when we banned right around when we're banning the rams, the ram lambs, we get everybody up into the corral and sort off the ones that aren't performing. And then we took 55 of them in one shot to the sale barn last year. And that was the culls for the year. We don't, with the cattle, we'll like keep a close eye and cull them throughout the year. With the sheep, it's just one shot. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've got some good questions coming up.
Yeah, let's do it.
What were each of your thought processes, individually and jointly, when you decided to come back for another year?
That's a great question.
That is a great question.
You want to start, or do you want me to start?
So, obviously, we both really enjoy it here, but that wasn't something that, like, this decided. I mean, it was, but it's like...
But it's a big decision.
What we were thinking... I don't know how to. You start.
So I guess
it's a hard one to unpack.
From my perspective, it's all about just thinking about like the opportunity cost of what you're about to do, and so like really what the options that you're weighing is option one, which is what we thought was going to happen, is after a year we would be hired by somebody else and then further the education in a managerial position, most likely down this sort of regenerative grazing management path, right? That's like option one. And so option two, which became available to us later in the year, was staying here for another year. And so you just got to think about, all right, staying here for another year, what am I stand to gain and what do I stand to miss out on, or not miss out on, but delay a year. And so those things would be like, you'd be living in a different part of for me, it was you'd be living in a different part of the country. You might have a slightly better living situation than 2 people in a trailer, soon to be 3 people in a trailer. You will be paid more than we're being paid now. It's more responsibility, so it's a different kind of education, like furthering that, right? But all these things are going to happen. It's just delaying it for a year. So then you just start to think about the advantages of staying here, and the biggest one is just more repetition in a safe environment, so to speak, as in we understand the system at this point to a T, and so all of those hiccups and situations, that stuff that goes wrong, like we were talking about earlier, it's just more experience under the belt on dealing with those things and learning how to put out all sorts of different kinds of fires, and that is just so valuable, being in a situation to be able to do that with basically no risk, as in the purpose is to learn. It's not to be making money for yourself or making money for somebody else. And so
another thing too is like the people, the more people we'll be able to meet, because like
yeah,
we met
absolutely.
so many cool people at the grazing schools and people coming for farm tours. And
you
stuff.
Guys on
exactly.
on this platform.
And so like, you know, we got a whole another year of that of meeting people in the field, and then you know another more opportunities, you know, to come up, and then also the Greg's never had 2-year interns before.
Yep.
And so it's like, you know, it's kind of like another thing on our resume, so to speak, that we can put on that, you know, we're doing well here, and we're able to stay an extra year.
Yeah.
So.
And along those lines, like this, talking about like the springboard as far as opportunities in the future that we've sort of delayed for a year, there's a very high likelihood that we're going to have opportunities in a year that we wouldn't have had, you know, starting now, because purely the fact that Greg's reach and scope as an expert in the regenerative agriculture field is growing every year. I mean, his YouTube channel is just consistently grows, if you want to use that as a metric. But just like the amount of people that are underneath that are aware of who Greg is and therefore aware of who we are gets larger and larger every year. And so delaying it a year means that we might be capturing some interesting opportunities that we might not have been able to capture after this year. Also, like the COVID thing probably would be died down by then as well. And so
I mean, who knows?
that probably wouldn't have had a huge impact just because of the nature of the industry and the fact that, I mean, for a lot of people, business went up in the agriculture industry, like regenerative, small-scale, sustainable agriculture industry when COVID hit, because there was all sorts of food insecurity issues and whatever. So that was sort of a good thing, but you just never know what opportunities wouldn't have been available because of that. So just weighing all of those things, there's really not a lot of downsides for staying for another year, and there was a lot of upsides for staying for another year.
And
we both and we're, I mean, obviously we're both at different parts in our lives by a couple years, and so
like in the grand scheme of things, a year
is nothing.
It's not that much time, and so like it's not like we're missing out on, you know, if we were to start a year ahead, it's not like it's going to make that big of a deal in the long run or whatever, or, you know, like a year's went by quick, and it's going to go by quick again. So
and I will say that like because we're obviously because we're different people, like we each had to think about it ourselves and talk to our families about it or friends or whoever, to just sort of work through it, and that took a couple days, and it was like a
week.
Thought it over.
Well, it took a couple days.
Took a couple days, and then we talked to Greg and Jan like probably a week later. But it's just, you know, making sure you don't make a hasty decision. So yeah, I mean, we're pumped about it, and that was the decision making process. But I think also something to consider is like Greg obviously had something to offer us as far as the learning opportunities, like we just talked about, the learning opportunities, the springboard opportunities, like that kind of stuff. He had like more to offer us staying for another year. If you're somebody who's thinking about, I'm going to give a 2-year option for my interns, I would make sure that you're capable of making that second year worth their while, if that makes any sense. As far as like helping put them in a better position. If it's just going to be more of the same, and they're basically going to be as good as they were, you know, it's if you're just trying to take advantage of them as far as like free labor or cheap labor for another year, like that really shouldn't be the way you're looking at it. You need to be thinking about it's going to be harder to like give them more, if that makes any sense. Like you're already operating at a high level, so those incremental increases in skill are so much harder to achieve. You need to be capable as a mentor of bringing them to those like incremental next levels, which is a lot harder than taking somebody from square zero and bringing them to step 10 or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yep.
What
was I going to say? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
That was a good question.
We haven't been asked that before.
No. Could you talk about Redmons Conditioner? So, we
have not used it.
and I don't. So, I don't want to just say anything because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, neither of us have any direct experience.
We are going to be getting some Redmons sea salt to start trying. The conditioner we haven't used, and
the only thing that I know about it is what Steve Campbell told us about it, and all that is just Redmons Conditioner is basically a form of clay. It's an incredibly fine particulate, and it binds to toxins and other sort of impurities in the animal, and it lets them pass through the animal and then become inert in the soil. And so it's sort of a way of drawing out toxins from the animal to make it healthier. That's really all I know. I don't know any other details about amounts. Does it actually work? Do you see a difference? What kind of stuff should I be looking for? What does it actually fix? Can I throw it in the pond? Like those kinds of things. Can I eat it? Anyway, but
no, we don't know enough about it.
We don't know enough about it to go into that. But if people have more knowledge about it, throw it in the chat. I'd love to hear about it. Because it might be something that we try in the future, but at this point we're not.
We got a cold wind blowing.
Shut this window.
I
apologize for the noise.
If you have 40 acres and running 10 head of cattle, where would you put the bull when you remove him to avoid winter calving? I'm assuming 40 wouldn't be enough room to separate. If you're only running 10 head,
I would consider renting a bull, potentially, or leasing a bull from somebody. That's an option.
Yeah, 40 wouldn't be enough room to separate probably, unless
40 acres.
Unless you just kept them up in a dry lot.
Let's think about this for a second. So if you were running the amount of animal units that we do per acre, 2 acres per animal unit, you'd be able to run 40 acres. You'd be able to run what?
20 cows.
20 cows.
But
20 animal units.
He said he has 10 head.
10 head. Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that part. 10 head.
If you had 40 acres and running 10 head of cattle, where would you put the bull? I would try. If you can tell for sure that your cattle are bred, I would just run them with him. If you only got 10 head, if you can if you're there every day moving them, and you can keep a track of who's getting bred and who is still to be bred, as long as they're not going to get bred in that November through March through July time frame, you should be good. Yeah, because you'll be able to keep track. You can even bring a vet out to preg check with that many head. It wouldn't take that long. Obviously, there's sometimes inaccuracies with preg checking. Pregnancy checks for those people who aren't in the know. You could do that, or sometimes you can just tell. If she's riding, then she's in heat, and as long as nothing's riding.
And by riding, meaning
or if the bull's
cow,
mounting, if the bull's riding her, she's in heat, and then you need to separate them if it's in that time frame.
But if they all get bred within the correct time window,
right? If you put your bull in July 1st and he's got them bred by August 31st,
which he probably should.
He probably should. If one bull with 10 head.
If someone's in, that would be something in your situation that you should think about culling for. If those cows don't get bred within their first cycle, 2 cycles, however long it takes to, for that window to occur, they don't get bred in that period of time. You should consider getting rid of them, because you need that high fertility in your situation.
Of course, there's the thing: if you're breeding in July, they're gonna calve in April, and they could breed back in May. And then you've got winter calves.
May. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So it would be more like you'd wanna. Let's think. You'd wanna if you put the bull in, it's a 9-month gestation. So if you wanted them to, what's the early July? So 9 months prior to July, somewhere in the.
I feel like I saw or I heard of something where they took rams and put almost like a diaper.
Yeah. That was someone who came to buy a ram. It was it's like a chastity belt, basically.
Yeah.
It's
on the ram, so they could just run the ram with the ewes, and he wouldn't. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable.
I wouldn't do that with a bull. I also wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with it either.
Because it's if it fails, then you've got calf in winter. I don't know. If you've got if maybe you've got 10 acres or something down the road that you could look at leasing.
Yeah, that would be a good
situation. And then just running
situation.
him with a steer.
Otherwise, I'd look at leasing a bull.
Yeah.
It's like seeing if I could.
Or if there's like a couple people near you that all want to run a bull, and you could somehow.
Yeah, if you have another cattle producer, yeah, exactly, who's got bulls, and you're like, hey, can I borrow him for a month or 2 months or 3 months? Yeah, exactly. Can I pay you X amount for every month that I've got him to get my cows bred, and then I can give them back to you. Like, people might be down to do that. So you need, like, that's a potential option. But yeah, if you can find a little piece that's separated that you could lease to run them on.
If you're thinking about it, it's only 4 months out of the year that you need to separate him.
Yeah.
And so 4 months for one animal is like,
it's not a lot of land.
You could probably get away with like 3 acres of grass or something. Get that fence and just move them every day. And
it's okay to push them a little bit. Like, it's not the bull can sort of take it, if that makes any sense.
You don't have to baby him.
And what's kind of interesting with us, I mean, this is rams and not bulls, but like when the rams get separated from the ewes, they go into a little bachelor pad up here by the house, and they just get rotated around this patch of woods from December through to July through to December, right? Rams, July through to December. Yes. Yeah, so from July through to December, they are in this like sort of bachelor pad by the house, and they get rotated around this woods for that many
basically
months.
Back and forth,
and they chew that thing down, and it's like they're getting exposed to a higher parasite load and like less high quality forage, lower quality forage than any other ewe will ever experience in their entire life. And so what it does is, if some of those ram lambs don't make it, like they get wormy or parasitic or whatever, it's like that if they don't, they're a super tough animal.
If they can make it through
what we put them through. And it's not like we're abusing them, but it's just like they're being put a little bit more to the test than the other animals are. And so that like those genetics are solid, and they're going to get spread throughout your flock.
Male breeding animal, whether that's the bull, the ram, the boar, the the buck, any male animal that you'll be breeding with has more impact than any other animal in your herd. Because if you think about it, his genetics are being spread over, or their genetics, whether it's like 2 or 3, are being spread over the whole herd. Whereas like a cow, she can only spread her genetics to her calf, a ewe to her lambs, and so
the bull
or the ram or the
buck,
boar.
What else?
Drake. No.
Yeah, isn't it a drake?
Mallard. No, that's a breeded duck.
Regardless,
they have the most impact on your herd as far as genetics.
So if you push them a little bit and you see that they're still holding condition and still performing, that like that's a solid animal. You know what I mean? So it's not a bad thing to push that male just a little bit more than you would the rest of your animals, to allow him to be separated from the rest of your animals. So, but
you also want them to be ready to breed.
Exactly. It's a fine balance. It's not like you can just, all right, buddy, you get this much grass and that's it. You know what I mean? Like you got to work with them a little bit, but it's okay that they're not getting the lush, pristine, freshly recovered forage that like the rest of the female mob is.
You also got to think is they don't have a calf sucking on them, or they don't have a lamb sucking on them, so they're not being pulled down by anything. They're just having to keep their own body weight up and put their own. They're just having to work for themselves, not for other animals, and so they can make it on a lot poor quality forage and management.
But that's something that you'll learn how to do, but just through experience. But yeah, leasing, try to find a little piece. Don't be afraid to push them a little bit. AI potentially with that few ahead could be an option. I'm not condoning it necessarily just because I don't have any direct experience, but you have a lot of experience with it.
Not with the actual
AI,
breeding,
but with the collecting.
Collecting.
Yeah.
The other end of it.
The other end of it. Anyway.
Another question. Do you feel like horse manure spread on pasture would be effective for adding organic matter and grass seeds? Assuming it's from non-wormed horses. I'm on small acreage and can easily get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Any kind of carbon, and manure, nutrients that you can spread on the land. Don't spread wood chips. anything broken or that can break down
quickly
is just going to be hugely beneficial. Hay is a really good thing. Straw, manure. The reason I said not wood chips is because when they are in order to decompose, they have to take nitrogen to break it down. And so when you spread on your pasture, you just decrease the nitrogen, and so that the grass needs the nitrogen and a lot of other nutrients to grow. And so wood chips, if you're able to mix it with manure and then make compost, then you can spread it on your pasture. But don't just go out there and spread straight wood chips,
and obviously spreading straight horse manure, like you need to wait for that to break down before you can bring your animals back in. You got to almost think of it like they grazed it, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But if you spread it behind them, that'd be a huge, it'd be good.
It'd be good. Yeah, exactly. Let us know how it turns out.
Mm-hmm. Especially non-wormed.
Yeah.
Good idea. When starting a new ranch, what to do for the first year or two if building your herd / flock? Likely no money would be coming in this scenario.
What to do when you first start?
Starting out, it's probably a good idea to have a nest egg built up in any business. Whether this is kind of across the board, but whenever you're starting a business, especially on a farm, if you've got enough money saved up that 2, maybe 3 years, you can make it on what you have saved up, as far as like you can
your personal
survive,
expenses, yeah,
and you don't have to draw from the business. There's a lot better chance that your business is going to be successful because it's not getting, it's the same way with like the cows. She's getting drawn down. The business is getting drawn down. If you can keep all the profit from the business going back into the business, it's going to grow itself a lot quicker. So the nest egg is a huge one.
Yep.
And obviously,
it's not going to be making a lot of money right off the bat.
Yeah, for
the most part.
And the enterprises is different. Like cattle are going to take one of the longest. Cattle is like the longest enterprise in order to see your cash flow or like your return on your investment.
Yep.
Sheep are a lot quicker. A lamb, then that lamb will grow a year, and if it's a ewe lamb, she can throw her first lamb when she turns a year old. And so talk about cash flow, Chickens are even more. Chickens will fill out in 8 weeks. If you buy broiler chicks, you raise them, you feed them, you butcher them, and then you got your money back, and you've made money in 8 weeks. But it's just like, you just gotta do the numbers, see how it'll work on your own place, and having the nest egg is a huge one. Being able to support yourself.
And we've talked about like custom grazing as far as the cattle operations are concerned. That's a good way to generate, because cash flow is the hardest thing for a fledgling business. So if you can custom graze, you're getting basically like a steady stream of income every month. You're getting a check for grazing those animals. Like that is huge. If you want the business to be generating some sort of money like right off the bat. And cattle is your only enterprise. As far as, it's just part of it that it just takes time to grow. It's going to be that initial investment, and then once it's set up and running, then it'll start to kick.
The first 10 years are going to be rough. You're going to be pinching pennies, trying to make it work.
It depends on your situation, obviously, but
Usually, if you can make it through that first 10 years, though, that you're doing really good, and there's a good chance you're gonna continue forward as long as you keep doing what you're doing.
But it also depends on that timeline depends dramatically on where how you're able to start. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you're starting from nothing and you got to pinch your pennies the whole way there, and you don't have like a significant amount of capital in the beginning to start out, it's true. It's going to take at least a decade for you to get to the point where the thing is fully formed and functioning and able to support you, right? But if you've got, because of an off-farm job, or you had a successful career doing something else, or whatever it is, if you've got a significant amount of capital and you're able to invest it in education and getting the right stuff and getting the right materials and livestock and right methodology from the start, you're able to set that up, I mean, your turnaround is just going to be so much faster because you're that much farther along.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't buy time, but you sort of can. In that respect, seriously. If you have the money to afford it, invest in education and the right stock and equipment. I mean,
you're setting yourself up for success.
You save yourself 5 years, easy.
Yeah.
Doing stuff like that, but not everybody's got that luxury. So.
Yep. I would like to apply for Greg's internship program in a couple of years. What's the best way I can put myself out there for the position? The application.
The best way to put yourself out there for the position is in the application. You just gotta be yourself. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like there's no secret sauce. Everybody's different. We talked about last talked about last night. Prior experience is not a requirement at all. At least for us. It's more just about the individual themselves and their passion for the whole thing, because fresh eyes are almost more valuable than somebody who's got already a very strong idea of how things should be done. It's almost better to be operating on a clean slate. So
that being said, though, it also is a huge advantage if you start trying things. Maybe try working at a farm down the road, or doing little things just to get some of those fundamentals down. That you'll be more going into the internship. You'll be more. It's easier for you to see what's going on and recognize it and such.
And getting involved in stuff, even that's not necessarily agriculture related, to sort of demonstrate that you've got commitment and hard work and you're dependable, and you got to build some references, because we require 3 references. I think I only gave 2, but they were my coach of 4 years and a professor that I worked for an entire summer, and we were really those 2 people knew me really well. So the fact that I didn't have 3 wasn't a huge deal, I guess. But anyway, how some jobs will say ask references and they never contact them. I know for a fact that Jan and Greg call every single reference that you put in that application. So if you've got some people that can vouch for you that are not friends and family, that's big. And so just building
building yourself.
Yourself,
not necessarily your experience, but yourself.
Yeah, hard work, dependable.
Good, integrity,
good attitude, just basic stuff like that. If you got people that can vouch for you because of prior jobs or prior involvements in other things, that's always a good thing. Yep.
Is there a U.S. equivalent to the Jackaroo or Jackaroo program? Post-high school 1-year ag internship. I don't know.
I haven't.
What's
There's
the Quivira Coalition.
Quivira Coalition.
There's a Quivira. It's like I don't really know a lot about it.
But it's something to do with it's a lot of Western ranches.
Yeah, it's in more arid environments, and it's they try to set up individuals with ranches that are needing, wanting to teach people, kind of set up internship programs. So check that out.
And I don't know if you do
UIOVARA or something like that, coalition.
And I don't know if they do a rotation or if it's just one.
Yeah, I think there's a whole it's a whole organization. There's a lot of different components to it, but they do.
I'll try to find the link if I clip this out and put it on the YouTube video. So for people who want to check it out. But anyway, I don't know a lot about it. It's just people have mentioned it to us.
Yeah.
I mean, there's woofing, which is I don't know if you heard about that, but it's world's organic something or whatever. Basically, it's just a forum that you can go on, and all over the world you can get linked up with people who are in various areas of organic or sustainable agriculture, whether that's vegetable production or livestock or orchards or vineyards, whatever it is. Sometimes it's just somebody's got a really big homestead and they need somebody to come in and help them manage it or whatever, and that's a platform where you can get connected with people all over the world, literally all over the world. So maybe look into that. It's WOOF. My sister did it, but anyway, that's sort of as far as I know. And then what I would say, I'm not familiar with what that program is specifically that he or she's referencing there, but But if you
Jackaroo and Jackaroo,
if you're interested in working with somebody and they don't have an internship program, it never hurts to send them an email or direct message them or try to find their phone number and give them a call or whatever. You never know if they might be needing help or you just never know. Getting in contact with somebody is never a bad idea. So
where are we at? All right, we already got that one. Did you find all the puppies?
Yes, we did.
Yep, they were cold, wet, and shivering, and
confused.
whining.
Yeah, they were confused.
They were happy to see us.
They were.
Prolapse sheep after lambing. Do you call in the field and give the lamb away as a bottle feeder?
If there was a prolapsed ewe, we probably would
butcher it.
We'd probably put it down. Yeah, and butcher it. We just don't have as much. It's just not as much of a priority, and yeah, it's just not as much of a priority. I know for some people it would be like, vet visits, like trying to like save the ewe or whatever. It would be a call, for sure. But we probably wouldn't even bring it to the sale barn.
Yeah, we would just.
Yeah. And
with the lamb, we probably wouldn't do much with it.
Yeah.
We definitely wouldn't bottle feed it.
We probably would just. I think we probably let it hang around and see if another mother would take it.
Yeah, and if that didn't happen,
it'd probably just die on it. Because they go downhill very quickly when they're first born.
Yeah.
As far as like if they don't get milk immediately, like they're usually toast. We either put it down or it just wouldn't make it or whatever. But yeah, that's one of those management decisions where you just got to weigh your options and what you have invested in it. And if it's a business, as Ian says, like if you're in the livestock business, you're also in the dying business. Mm-hmm. So
she called herself out of the herd.
Yep.
Or flock.
It's one of those deals.
Are you still doing the free choice mineral with apple cider vinegar salt increase?
Yeah, yes. We're still rocking it.
They've been eating it a little bit. I mean, they've definitely
the free choice,
but we've noticed a decline in
consumption,
and we don't know whether that's because the apple cider vinegar is an attractant or whether that mineral. I mean, I'm sure that mineral is getting them what they need.
Yeah, because if they weren't getting what they need, they'd have to go to the free choice. So, jury's still out.
We're still testing. We're testing it for you guys and for us and for everybody. It's not.
We'll keep you posted though. After this year, we'll have some indicators probably, but it might be it's going to be a multi-year experiment to see what works.
Like definitely what works. Like definitively.
Yeah, definitively. So.
My first live stream. I've been watching you on YouTube. Thanks for the info. Sweet.
Awesome. Yeah, people have been saying like, why don't you just stream on both? Little do people don't understand that I'm doing what I can because we don't have internet and we have shoddy cell phone signal. So it's not like it's easy for me to upload.
We're making it work.
We're making it work with what we got. So at this point, this is the best thing that I can come up with. I've been researching, trying to figure out maybe a way of bringing this to YouTube as well, but I don't want to abandon my Instagram fam, the original Chewing the Cud gang. So it's not going to go away. Don't worry about that.
What about spreading biochar?
I mean, we don't have.
Greg's tried it, I think, but he did the compost tea.
Compost tea. I don't have experience with it.
Yeah.
I've heard of people like feeding it to cattle, as in their mineral to get it like on the land or whatever. I don't have any experience with it though. Yeah. Give it a shot. See what happens. I don't know.
Fencing question. Is a 1 1/4 inch fiberglass rod strong enough for end posts and corners on a single wire high tensile? Yes.
Yes, 100%.
For sure.
Especially if it's a 6-footer.
If you have a 6-footer, you drive it in the ground for 3 foot, that thing is not budging. Drive it at an angle about like that, and pull that's pulling that way. That way, when you pull tension on it, it'll straighten, and it'll be stuck there. It's not going to go any farther. If you drive it straight, when you put tension, it's going to go forward. It's going to lean in. So if you drive it at a little bit of an angle, it'll end up straight.
And by an angle, like you're offset from perfectly vertical by just a couple inches at the top.
Like if this is vertical, you drive it like that.
Yeah, it's not like you're not driving it like that. Yeah.
Or else that'll stay at an angle.
Yeah, but if you're driving a fiberglass post in a creek for a creek crossing, you actually do want an angle kind of like that with the current so that stuff doesn't catch.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a different topic.
What's the best Energizer brand and amount of joules for 106 acres?
106 acres, probably.
Two really good brands are the Cyclops and the Speed Right. I was about to say Stayfix.
Formerly Stayfix. Cyclops.
They're a little pricey. Cyclops is a lot cheaper, but it doesn't have the luxury of having the remote shut off. That's what the SpeedRite has. And as far as the joules,
106 acres.
You could probably do an 18 joule. Yeah.
If you really wanted to be safe, and you have the option of expanding, you know what I mean? Like if you were going to put in more fence on more acreage linked onto that same charger, I would go with a 32.
But you got to think, with the chargers, you can overdo it, and it burns them up. So if you've got 5-strand perimeter around the 106 acres and you got a lot of brush load on it, then I would say you can go with a 32. But if
you don't have a lot of wire that you're trying to push and there's not a lot of vegetative load, I would go around 18. Go over
18 joule.
It says, like, if you do your research and you contact manufacturers or whatever, they have ratings for those joules. So like I think the 32 joule is like something ridiculous. It's like 4,000 acres or it's like 2,000 acres of not 2,000. I don't know what it is. It's some crazy acreage of 5-strand heavy load fence.
There's ratings on it, and if you go to like Timeless Fence or other fence companies, you call them, they're gonna PowerFlex or Kenco or other fence suppliers like that. They're gonna know what they're talking about or what you're dealing with if you explain your situation.
Yeah, but how many wires and what kind of vegetative load
is a big one,
and the acreage, like that's a big one. Mm-hmm. So
during the intros, you both mentioned cattle, sheep, and even mushrooms, but never the guard dogs and puppies. Any reason why? I just forget.
He just rattles off everything.
I just start thinking, and then it just becomes. I'll start saying puppies and guard dogs now. That's a big piece to it, especially lately.
It is a big piece right now. It is a big. Yeah, if anybody's interested in raising puppies, like bringing them up to train them at any sort of scale, you need to really consider how much you love doing that, because
I would not. This is my own experience, and you may have other feelings, but I would say don't try to train more than 4 puppies per sheep flock. So if you have maybe 3 different sheep flocks, you could train more puppies, But I think 4 to 6 is probably the max you want to go to, just because it's a lot.
Like basically a litter.
Basically a litter, and maybe less if you could.
I wouldn't go over 1 litter.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And sometimes a litter can get into trouble, so if you split it up a little bit too.
Yeah.
Puppies are a lot. They're real smart, and so when they're not like a sheep. Sheep are dumb. Puppies are smart, and when you get a lot of them, they can get into trouble. So.
Yeah, they cause a lot of headache, and it's a lot of really what it is it's like they become one of the most management intensive enterprises on your farm. So you just have to be prepared for that. It's not something like the sheep, which is a very much not set it and forget it, but there's a lot less attention that we need to put towards the sheep, just because of the way that it's set up and the way that we run it,
and the way the sheep
are bred, and even the cattle to a certain extent. Like we manage them a lot more closely, but at the end of the day, it's not a huge headache. The dogs require a lot of management when you're doing them at the kind of volume that we're doing them right now. So just something to consider. Yeah, but yes, we do sell them, and I think they're all sold. Pretty sure. So.
Even wink.
Yeah.
You can get the Cyclops and a wall plug, Wi-Fi controlled on and off, surge protector, and notifications if your fence goes off. That's the route I'm going on my first timeless fence system.
That's a good. For those who don't know, because there's no remote shut off, you can get a Wi-Fi enabled plug that you can then shut off. But you need to either have cell phone signal or Wi-Fi available where that charger's plugged in. And for situations like this, it's not a thing on a lot of places where the chargers are plugged in.
One of the chargers we may be able to get
Wi-Fi.
But
maybe.
That's one.
Yeah, so it's something to consider.
If it works for your system, that's a great
option.
It's probably a lot cheaper than the SpeedRite charger. You have the shut-off capability.
Cyclops is a beast of a charger. It's a beast.
Yeah, and another advantage to Cyclops is they've got fuses on each side that you can take out without having to remove the cover. of the charger. I think the Speed Right.
It also has a built-in lightning arrestor too.
Yeah, it does.
The Cyclops does.
And it's an American-made company too, the Cyclops. We're just promoting these
Cyclops. No, but Speed Right's like the Cadillac of the charger world. They're like top grade. There's nothing really that beats it. Cyclops is right there, but there's just a couple little bells and whistles that doesn't. But
as far as like the quality of the actual
charger itself and like what you need it to do, like they're
both right there.
They're both right there. So
another one that another brand is Gallagher. Gallagher makes a pretty good charger too. Yep. It's not quite the
standard
oomph of the Cyclops or the Speed Right, but it's it's a little more affordable, and it still does work. Yep. So it's not cheap, or it's not like a junky.
Yeah, you really don't want to be cutting corners when it comes to powering up your fence. If you're gonna spend money, that's one of the areas that you need to spend money.
Cyclops sponsor these boys.
Hey, I'd take a Cyclops sponsorship.
I'd take a Cyclops sponsorship. Thoughts on Lowline Angus?
We had a video. There's a video about this on YouTube.
Well, it was about Dexter's, I think, but it's kind of the same.
No. There's a video about Lowline.
Oh yeah, that's
Lowline and Aberdeen Angus, which I guess are the same thing.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's just like it was Aberdeen Angus was a British breed that was rebranded as Lowline when it came to the United States.
Huh.
At least that's what people tell me in the comments. So correct me if I'm wrong.
We're relying on you guys. Yeah. Go watch that video because we could talk about. We can talk about it. We can just do the quick version of it. You want to make sure that the biggest thing when you're breeding like any sort of animal, in addition to like if you're going to breed two South Poles, and the reason we talk about South Poles all the time is because they're a grass genetic animal. They're built for grass and to perform on grass. If you're breeding like a South Pole with any other animal, in general, you want to be looking for small frame size. And so if you can find small frame size in whatever it is to start off, you're going to be better off. And then we would recommend, we recommend, because this is the way that Greg has done it, is line breeding. And the way that you would line breed with like Lowline or Corriente or Galloway or something like that, is you take your South Pole bull, right, and your Lowline cow, and you breed the two of them. The offspring is now 50% Lowline, 50% South Pole. You then take that, if it's a heifer, you take that heifer and you breed her back to her father, which now, if that heifer then is bred and she calves and she has another heifer, that next generation is now 3/4 South Pole, 1/4 Lowline. And you see how it sort of keeps going down where you're breeding up, essentially. Like you're breeding in more of the like positive traits from that South Pole grass genetics, and you're sort of diluting out the negative traits of the other breed, but potentially keeping some of those positive traits that you're trying to augment the South Pole with, maybe with like more arid environment tolerance or more cold tolerance or something along more heat tolerance, something along those lines. So there's an advantage to sort of being able to create your own special mix of like a hybrid, so to speak, that will fit your environment, because at the end of the day, you need an animal that will excel on your farm. It doesn't matter if it's purple, it doesn't matter if it's got zebra stripes or whatever. If you've got an animal it performs incredibly on your farm, you may get destroyed at the sale barn depending on what it looks like, but if you can figure out a way to market it, like it's such a huge advantage. It's just a bonus if you can offload your culls at the sale barn. It just makes things a lot easier. So it's something to keep in mind. But anyway, that's sort of the speed version of it. Yep.
There's videos out there that
watch the video.
Yeah, there's videos out there that I've put out about line breeding with South Pole bulls, Aberdeen, Angus, Lowline, Corriente. There's a bunch of videos where we talk about it in more depth. But yeah.
Do you think having two livestock guardian dogs makes them less likely to roam, or is one livestock guardian dog okay for 30 sheep?
So what's the ratio? It's like
one guard dog to like 80 to 100 sheep. They can protect that much.
Yeah. That being said,
it's maybe not a good idea to just have one guard dog, because maybe let's say something happens to that guard dog. Oh, now you're without a guard dog,
and they're not easy to procure.
They're not easy to find or to train or to, come upon, and so it might be a good idea to have two in your situation. And as far as roaming, if you get them fixed, they're not going to be roaming as much as if they, if like a female comes in heat.
Or a male's looking for females in heat.
And so if I would recommend with 30 sheep, obviously it's kind of a big investment, but if you in an area where there's a lot of predator pressure, they're going to save you money over time.
Yeah, I would just chalk it up to like a startup cost that you need to. Mm-hmm. I just wouldn't personally, that'd be my recommendation. I just wouldn't feel comfortable with one dog, regardless of how many sheep I have.
Maybe you get your one adult and then you buy a puppy that's a little bit cheaper and you train them yourself, and then you'd be able to save some costs that way, and then you get the pup up to, then you'd have a pup in the making, so if something does happen, at least you've got something on the way. And when a pack of coyotes comes in, it's kind of nice to have a dog with a dog behind, a dog to have each other's back. So
exactly. The more the merrier. Well, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
We've found that limit.
There's a very distinct limit.
Yeah.
Oh, George says, my wife keeps showing me pictures of Highlanders. She thinks she's funny. Highlanders are great cattle for northern climates.
Specific environments.
And environments that have poorer quality forage, because they can make it on a lot less forage, or they kind of prefer less quality.
There's advantages.
Minnesota, they might do well in Minnesota.
But there's advantages and disadvantages to everything. Obviously,
they have a lot of hair.
George, maybe you're the one to cross
the Highlanders
South Pole.
You should do it, George.
I don't know. Greg would probably have a heart attack.
You take some of the hair off of them, and it'd be good.
Yeah, exactly. But you also think about he's gonna make my South Pole bull all woolly. Well, as in like future bulls or whatever. But anyway, that's funny. I'd be super curious to see what that cross looks like, though.
Are you gonna do it, George? If you do, you better be posting.
You better be posting some videos.
Pictures and videos.
Yeah.
You're welcome, so thanks. Whose idea was it to make the back-to-back tandem dog feeder? Yours or Greg's? It was actually someone else's.
Yeah, it was a customer.
It was either a subscriber or it was someone buying
dogs. Yeah.
The guy had built a feeder that had the openings on both sides. He's like, you should do this because it gives the pups a way to get out of the feeder. So for those that don't know what we're talking about, we've got 2 dog feeders mounted on runners inside cattle panel fence, and then there's 2 entrances below the cattle panels on each side so that the dogs can slide under, but the sheep can't get their head in there and eat the dog food. Because once you train your sheep to eat dog food, then dog food is expensive, and it's hard enough just to keep the dog feeders full with the dogs. But if the sheep started eating, you'd be out of business. And so originally, his dog feeder just had one entrance, and so the pup would go in there and be eaten, and if a bigger dog came in, there was no way for that pup to get out. And so it kind of there was a chance that pup wouldn't go in because it was scared it would get attacked. And so now with the entrance on both sides, there's always a way that he can get out and get away and not be harmed. And so it's a lot better for the dogs.
We get better consumption that way.
We call them the ARC.
The ARC.
So we actually have 2 of them now.
They're huge. That's why we call them the ARC. In comparison, they're built too.
They're 12 feet long, 4 feet wide, and they're on oak runners, 2 inches thick.
2 inches thick.
Actually 2 inches thick, not like a 2x4.
Yeah.
And so those dudes are gonna last a while.
Yeah, but anyway, you could make a much smaller one, but it's for production livestock guardian dog, training.
Yeah.
We're built to handle the feed for potentially 30 dogs, which I would highly recommend not training that many dogs, but we have that many dogs, and we have the capability of feeding them all, because we have a capacity of 150 pounds of dog feed right?
No, 300 pounds.
300 pounds. Sorry, we have capacity
with the two of them.
With
Each feeder has 150.
Each feeder has 150 pound capacity, and so we can have 300 pounds of food out there. They basically eat 50 pounds of dog food a day, and that's only basically half of
it's
them.
like 20 dogs, and we have like 28.
And
that's like 18 dogs.
Because the biggest eaters are not in with the sheep right now, and those guys probably, if they were in there, would go through a bag themselves. And so I bet we go through, if everybody was in there, it would be like 100 pounds of dog food a day.
Every 3 days we'd have to change or fill up completely.
Yeah, so
but
it's nuts.
So yeah.
Anyway,
George
they're only getting bigger.
George says, I don't think so. I couldn't do that to Greg.
Yeah.
Oh man, zebra stripes and sail barn problems. Are we discussing belted Galloway?
No, we already did. Yeah, belted Galloway. That's the sail barn problem that he's referencing. I made a video about that because we were getting a lot of questions about us bashing belted Galloways, and we're not bashing them. Although I have heard since then that people have had problems with them being sort of high-headed cattle and a little bit wild, but other people have had totally fine experiences with them. Regardless, they look funny, so you get docked at the sale barn. And when you've got an animal like a Galloway, which is essentially the same thing, as far as I know.
Just go for the Galloway.
Just go for the Galloway because it looks more like an Angus, and you won't get docked when you sell culls at the sale barn. That's that.
So I said, George, let's try the cross. I've been thinking of crossing my Highland with a South Pole. Might help them handle the Michigan summer a bit better.
There you go. We got a coalition. We got a coalition.
Yeah, gonna start it.
Yeah, the Highland, the High South, or the Southland.
The Southland.
I think that's a good name. The Southland cattle.
A funny story. There's an old farmer or rancher up here in North Missouri, and when Teddy Gentry started the South Pole breed, and he crossed Red Angus, Hereford, Senepol, and Barzona cattle to make the cross. And so when he was going around, selecting herds to choose from and developing this herd that he was this breed he was gonna create, this guy, his name is Dennis McDonald, followed him around and went to the exact same place and bought the same genetics, except for he left out the Senepol. And so the Senepol has slick hide. That's what gives the South Pole their slick, oily surface. And so Dennis, created his own breed from the same genetics, just minus one, and he lives in northern Missouri. Yeah. And so he created this breed, and so what he calls them the North Pole because the South Pole is what Greg runs or whatever. He's like, oh, mine are the North Pole because they don't have the heat tolerance as much or whatever.
He was half joking, but it's still funny. But yeah, Southland cattle could be a thing. Could be a terrible idea, but we just have no idea. You got to try it to see what happens.
Yeah, Highland poles.
Yeah.
Do the rams need a livestock guarding dog with them when they are separated from the ewes?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is that they're close enough to the house.
Ours
specifically are close enough to the house that we have 3 retired or sort of removed livestock. They're pets. They're former livestock guardian dogs that are now pets, and they roam around the house. And the rams are close enough to the house that their area during that time is close enough to the house that those dogs kind of act as livestock guardian dogs for the rams. Like they keep the coyotes away. They don't live with the rams, but just them roaming around.
They bark all night.
They bark all night, roaming around, keeping the coyotes at bay. Like we don't have problems with them.
Although coyotes will walk right out in that pasture.
It's true.
That's what
Maybe the rams just a little bit too tough.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe that's why they're getting out, because they're just too tough.
Yeah. I think that's about it.
That's what we should end on, because we don't have any more questions, and we just got another question.
All right, last one.
I like the slick hide because in Minnesota the summers are hot and humid.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Thanks for joining for the bonus episode of Chewing the Cud. We will have an episode next weekend. It'll be episode, I think I'm just going to call it 39. We'll call this one 38. Episode 39 this coming Sunday. It'll be with Connor.
I'll be gone.
Connor Helton will be sitting right here.
I'm going back to Michigan for a couple days.
Forever? No. He'll be
back. I need to clarify that because I'm not leaving.
He's not leaving
permanently.
I'm sure I'm gonna get inundated with questions on the next stream.
What happened
to Isaac? Is he gone?
Is he replaced?
Oh
no!
What'd you do with Isaac? Anyway, but yeah, we'll get to meet Connor, and I'll do a little interview with Connor, and that'll be the stream next week. So
Connor's coming Wednesday, so that is super exciting. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining. See you next week, same time, same place. Look for this on YouTube, probably by Saturday. That's usually when I've been posting them. Also, the Chewing the Cud is now available as a podcast everywhere that you listen to your podcasts. So look it up, Ben Hawley, Chewing the Cud, something along those lines. It'll pop up there. It's the same profile as everything, like my face with 864 in the background. Yeah. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you all later.